Hey guys, how y'all doing today? My name is Franchise Fanatic, and welcome back to Star Wars Month. And yes, this is another movie review today. I'm going to be having 3, so you already have Rogue One. Hopefully you have seen it. If not, go check it out. It's on the channel. Today we have another one, which is, of course, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, a.k.a. Star Wars, a.k.a. the first one released, a.k.a. the 4th one in the franchise, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, we're going to be having The Empire Strikes Back later tonight. So, sorry that I'm going to be having 4 videos today, but all this stuff is catching up with me, and I want to get it out before the 20th, which is, of course, when The Rise of Skywalker comes out. So, bear with me. Thank you for watching them all the way through. Hopefully, again, they're a little bit longer, but, again, I want to talk about other things. So, I have my list for A New Hope. Now, just to get things out of the way, a few things. This was the first Star Wars film ever made. However, it is the 4th one in the franchise. So when you watch 1, 2, 3, 4, really you're watching what came out 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3, and then 7, 8, 9. So it's a bit weird. George Lucas mucked it up for some reason. But again, this is the 4th film in the franchise, but the first one ever made. So keep that in mind. But again, this is number 4, A New Hope. So, other thing is that this is where the bulk of the nostalgia comes in for a lot of people. Myself, I was born in 98, so I have, you know, basically The Phantom Menace, aka Episode 1, or really the 4th one released, came out in 99. So really the prequels are my bread and butter, even though I wasn't really allowed to watch them when I was 3 because they're, you know, not for kids. But at the same time, you know, everyone holds nostalgia for either the prequels, the originals, or the sequels, which is fine. You can have your personal preference. However, for this review, I have to ask that you and myself ignore nostalgia, because yes, of course, everyone's going to say, oh, A New Hope's the best, because it's the one I grew up with. Well, you can't really do that when you review something for, you know, critically, for YouTube, because that's not how it works, you know, that's not really fair to the other films. Just saying, oh, you know, I grew up with this, was the best, you know. And I'm not saying this movie's bad, and I'm not saying it's amazing. I will be talking about different things, but again, I do ask that you and me, for this review, I have to ignore this nostalgia and just review it as a film. So, let's get on with, of course, the original. The first thing I want to talk about is the acting. Kind of funny because, now, the prequels don't have bad acting. Okay, they do. But there's not, like, terrible acting. This movie came out in 1977, and yes, it's the 4th film, but it's the first one released. And honestly, this movie has better acting than the entire prequel trilogy put together. Mark Hamill is great as Luke Skywalker. Carrie Fisher, great as Princess Leia. Han Solo, Harrison Ford, perfect. You know, Alec Guinness, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Tarkin, Darth Vader, C-3PO, R2-D2, Chewbacca, they're all amazing. There isn't really one actor that I felt was really bad at their job, which is their acting. You know, when you watch episode 1, 2, 3, you go, okay, that's good, that's good, that's good, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad. This one, I really didn't have any issue with the acting. You know, some of the line delivery is a little off, but to be mostly honest here, I mean, the only, like, bad acting would be Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia, because she goes in and out of a British accent every 5 minutes, which, okay, yeah, like I said, this is the first one released, and everyone called her Princess Leia. Either that's just bad English, or they actually, George Lucas wanted to be called Leia, but it is confirmed, it's canon, it's Leia. Of course, when Padme gives birth, she says Luke and Leia, so it is Leia. Whoever said Leia in this, either it's just because it's the first one made, or because they're just an idiot, I don't really know. But of course, Princess Leia, she does go in and out of a British accent a few times, which is kind of strange, because she's not British in The Last Jedi or The Force Awakens, or I don't think even 5 and 6. Like I said, I'm going to be watching 5 later, The Empire Strikes Back, and I'll tell you then if she does, but she does go in and out of this British accent, like I said, which is kind of strange. But other than that, the acting really isn't that, you know, bad at all. I mean, when you watch the prequels, like I said, it's like, oh, Hayden's good in that scene, Anakin's good, and then it's bad, and then it's good, bad, Padme, good, bad. This is basically all good, and I'm not sure why. Maybe George Lucas just got lazy with the prequels, which he probably did, let's be honest. But it's just something I had to mention. So the acting is far superior than the prequels, which is strange. Let's see here. We have the writing. The writing's not perfect, but there really isn't that many scenes that made me cringe. I think the prequels have worse writing than this. A New Hope has better writing than the prequels. And essentially, there's a few, you know, miss things here where Darth Vader's talking, and really it's not really the line, it's more or less how the actor delivers the line. Like in the beginning when Darth Vader's like, I want them to find, I want them found, and he just kind of walks away. He talks really fast, and it's really weird. It's not menacing at all. It's just kind of weird. And again, this is the issue, because a lot of people are either going to give me shit and be like, "Oh, you're wrong. I grew up on it." But again, you have to avoid the nostalgia when you review something. Yeah, I know every line in this movie is practically written on a friggin' TV shirt or a mug or something. But because you're reviewing it, yeah, Darth Vader said that kind of weird. You know, he's like, I don't remember the exact line, but he's like, you know, I want Leia to be found. I want them found, and he just walks away. I'm like, easy, man, take it easy. And then of course there's a few things when, of course there's a Star Wars Phineas and Ferb episode where there's a scene in this where they're on Dewback, the stormtroopers are on Dewbacks on Tatooine, and they find traces of C-3PO and R2-D2, and he kind of picks up a little, you know, like when you buy like a milk carton and like there's that blue thing that you throw around, it's like really like this. My cat used to love it all the time. He kind of picks like a metal looking one of those things up and he goes, "Look, sir, droids." And it's funny. It's not meant to be. I don't know if it's meant to be taken seriously, but it wasn't, and it's very corny and it's very cheesy. And don't tell me, "Oh, well, franchise fanatic, it's the first one. It's 1977. Give him a break." My code is that it doesn't matter how old something is. If you're a bad actor, you're a bad actor. That shouldn't matter. Education, schooling, whatever. That shouldn't matter. If it's bad acting in any movie at any time, it's still bad acting, no matter what year it was. And some of these lines, Darth Vader, you know, "I want the pound," and he's like, goes, "Look, sir, droids," and just Leia's thing, you know, it isn't perfect, and it certainly is lacking in a few regards, but it's definitely, it's better than the prequels, I'll tell you that. Let's see here, the directing. I think George Lucas did a great job directing this. I mean, I really have problems with George Lucas's writing more or less than his directing. You know, I think every shot is lined up pretty well. Like, if you see Revenge of the Sith, and there's that battle between Obi-Wan Kenobi and General Grievous, you know, he goes, "Oh, I didn't think so." And he goes like that, and he pushes Grievous, and he's like, "You are doomed," you know that thing? They zoom up on their faces, and Grievous is fine, but when they zoom up on Obi-Wan, he goes, "Oh, I don't think so." His eyes are like really, like, it's hard to, if you know what I mean, it's hard to say, but like, the way George Lucas framed the camera, there's like a little bit of Axis background here, when it should have just been his whole face. So he's not the best director. He's not even one of the best, but he doesn't do a bad job in A New Hope. For being his first Star Wars film, I do think that he did a pretty good job of this. Sometimes, well, you know, I'll save that for the editing. Let's go to the editing now. I'll skip one. So the editing is okay. Some scenes end quick. That's what I wrote there. And it's true. There's a lot of... now, quick cutting is not necessarily a bad thing. And there's a lot of quick cutting toward the end where they do the Death Star trench run, with the X-Wings and all that. But that's not really negative because it's meant to deliver tension and all that, and it's deliberate, I get that. But some scenes do end fast, and this is, again, the first one made, so I'm not going to be too harsh on it because it is in the 70s, but I have to review it as if I'm watching it in the 70s. And it still is pretty weird editing sometimes. It's nowhere near the prequel stuff sometimes, but definitely, you know, when they have, like, you know, Star Wars video games, whatever, where it like wipes, you know, up and down, that kind of weird, like, framing thing when they go scene to scene. It's in this, of course, and like I said, this is the first one, and it does it well, but it doesn't do it perfectly. Some of them are really strange. You can tell things, you know, light up and all that. And again, it's the 70s, so I can't be too harsh, but it is something to mention. Like I said, some of the scenes just randomly end when they should have gone on for like maybe 2 seconds or 1 second, you know, just to have that character breathe or have that scene, you know, last a little bit longer or even maybe end quicker. Sometimes scenes last too long. But other than that, I mean, the editing is not bad. It's just there are some scenes that are pretty apparent and they're pretty strange. You know, like when Luke, the first time Luke ignites a lightsaber in his little hut thing on Tatooine, you can tell whenever they ignite a lightsaber in this movie, it skips a frame. And that's just me. And again, I understand it's in the 77, it's in 77, but at the same time, I can't go, "Oh, well, you know, it's an older movie, so I'll give it some slack." I have to review it, and honestly, when it skips a frame, it's iconic because it's the first one, even though it's the fourth movie, you know. But at the same time, that is a slight negative that it is so apparent, and I know when people saw it in the 77, they probably didn't notice it, but when you notice it now, they could have probably done something about that. If not, whatever, but it is going to be a slight negative. Again, the editing of this movie is not bad, but there are certain scenes where it's kind of a little strange here. I'll go back up onto the sound again. For being the first movie, but again, like I said, the fourth one, you guys know by now, it sounds great. I mean, this movie really did, for not being perfect, it really did pioneer sound design and editing and directorial standpoints and everything. It really does push the bar, and that's probably why Star Wars is so popular. Not only because it's a good franchise, but because it's so freaking well made for being how old it is. You know, it really does stand the test of time. Not in every category, but it normally, generally does. And I do think that the sound is a good tribute to that. You know, whenever they ignite a lightsaber, you know how a lightsaber sounds, or whenever they shoot a blaster, you know, there's a lot of pink dust in this one, which isn't, of course, in any other Star Wars movie. But again, it's the first one. But there are a lot of things, like I said, the speeders and R2-D2 and C-3PO, everything. And this is a DVD. This is not a Blu-ray. I mean, I know A New Hope is on Disney Plus. I haven't had a chance to watch it on Disney Plus. I think they altered the Greedo scene and all that crap. I don't care about that. Han, I guess, shot first. I don't know. And this one, Greedo shoots first, so we'll have to see what you guys think. Who shot first, Han or Greedo? But again, the sound design really did pioneer for, you know, future things, and I think it works. You know, there's nothing that really sounds too off in this movie. For the plot, of course, there is a great plot. You know, I mean, if you really just watch this on its own, you have Luke Skywalker becoming just, you know, he wants to be something greater. And, you know, Han Solo's a smuggler, Princess Leia's a princess, Darth Vader's just the bad guy, you know. But it is a good plot, how they kind of, you know, after Rogue One, when they have the Death Star plans, they have to go and destroy the Death Star. We get to meet Luke for the first time and see what Tatooine is like. And it's really like, it's a good place to start, even though it's the fourth movie. So, you know, what I like about Star Wars is that each trilogy, prequel, original, and sequel, they have their own feel to them. You know, even though they're all part of the same canon universe, they all feel slightly different in tone and in how it looks too. So it is really cool. But again, the plot, nothing to, you know, care about. It's a timeless plot. It's so effing good. There's nothing to complain about. However, there is a plot hole in it. Now, if you've seen my review for Rogue One, which if you haven't, again, it is on the channel, please watch it. There's a big plot hole in A New Hope, which I can only account to George Lucas being extremely lazy. And that is, of course, being that the Death Star blows up with one little timed explosive to the core, and the whole damn thing explodes. That is lazy. And I know it works, but at the same time, it doesn't work. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, okay, if you just watch A New Hope as A New Hope, it doesn't work. You know, of course there's a big thing, you shoot it, blow the whole frickin' thing up. That's so lazy, and I hate it. Again, it's nostalgic, but you have to ignore the nostalgia. It doesn't work at all. It's very lazy. And Rogue One, the whole point about Rogue One is essentially to make this scene in A New Hope not complete bullshit. Because you look at it and you're like, way to go, George! You lazied up. And then you watch Rogue One before this, of course, because again, Rogue One takes seconds before A New Hope starts. And you're like, oh, I get it. The Death Star plans, they got it. You know, so of course, yeah, there are Death Star plans in this. That's what Leia's doing to R2-D2 in the beginning, but we never know how they get it or anything, so it's just very convenient for them. And convenience for movies can be good, and it can also be bad. And in this case, it is a slight negative. And I know, technically, I shouldn't be counting this as a negative because we do have Rogue One, but I'm reviewing A New Hope for A New Hope, and it is a negative. But again, the story's great. Characters. Instantly likable characters. The funny thing is, I love all the characters in the prequels, and I think Anakin and Obi-Wan's, you know, their friendship is vastly explored in the Clone Wars era, and you really care once you watch all this stuff. But there's just something about Leia, Luke, and Han, and, you know, Chewie and everyone. They're instantly likable. You don't need to tell other stories to like them, you know. And I do like the characters in the prequels. They are instantly likable as well, but this one a little bit more so, because it's just the way, I don't know, like, even the romance, the relationship. And if you don't watch the Clone Wars movie, and if you don't watch the Clone Wars TV show, and you just watch 1, 2, 3, you do not buy, or at least I do not buy Anakin and Padme's romance. It's very forced, very cheesy, very corny, and it doesn't work. However, if you go 1, 2, Clone Wars movie, Clone Wars show 3, it works, in my opinion. And I don't have an issue with it now, because I've seen all the Clone Wars stuff, and it fleshes out their relationship, and it works. However, this one, you don't need to flesh anything out with a TV show or an animated film to get the job done. Han and Leia constantly bickering. You know they instantly love each other. You know it for a fact. They instantly like each other, but they're just so bickering and they're hiding it. And it's, you know, I don't want to say cute, but it's a really nice way to bring these characters together. And it works a lot more than just, you know, oh, I saw you. Are you an angel? I love you. You know, that kind of stuff. It's so freaking bad in the prequels, but thankfully for the Clone Wars stuff, I buy it, and it works. But again, this one, especially Han and Leia's relationship, you don't need anything extra because it works so well because of them bickering. It's more realistic. But again, the characters, like I said, they're timeless, man. Now let's talk about the inevitable Luke Skywalker. Everyone's childhood hero was Luke Skywalker, including mine. I think if Luke wasn't a hero for you when you were a child, you had a bit of a effed up childhood. But with this going forward, a lot of people see this and they go, "Oh, nostalgia! Luke is amazing. Luke is hero. Luke is perfect. Luke is a god. He would never f anything up. He's perfect." And I'm sorry, but those people are wrong. And you're wrong if you think that. And I have to respectfully tell you that. I'm not going to say you're an idiot, but you are wrong. Luke in this movie, and really the whole original trilogy, went through 3 different phases. Luke in A New Hope is basically like an angsty teenager. He just wants to hang out with his buddies. He gives up a little bit. He's very immature in a way. But toward the end of the movie, he does have some character growth where he kind of believes in the Force more, and he does that. But it's a very flawed character, and it's supposed to be. Empire Strikes Back. I'll talk about this more in our review of the film later today. Today on the 15th. But he gives up too easily. He's very reckless in Empire. And in Return of the Jedi, he's pissed a lot. He gets raged a lot. He is very enraged. And he almost kills his father. So for people in The Last Jedi, when they're like, "Oh, Luke would never act that way. Luke is perfect. Rian Johnson ruined Luke. He would never try to hurt his nephew." And I just have to say you're wrong. You are actually wrong. I mean, that blurs the line between opinion and fact. It really is a fact. If you think Luke would never try to kill his nephew or Luke would fail, you're wrong. You didn't watch these movies, apparently, because he always fails. He always manages to do it and save the day and become the hero that we all love. But he is a human, not a god. And I want to stress that. Because everyone in the world who hates Luke in Last Jedi doesn't understand who Luke is. And I'm sorry, but it's the truth. In this movie, like I said, he's very immature. But he's starting to grow into a little bit of an older Jedi, into a Padawan, essentially, And he really has no experience with the Force. I mean, he used the Force to blow up the Death Star on instinct, just like Leia used it to pull herself back on the ship as an instinct. Just as Luke does in Empire when he reaches for the lightsaber with the Wampa. It's instinct. There's no required training with the Force. If you have a lot of midichlorians, you don't necessarily need to have training. Same with the lightsaber. There's a reason why in the next 2 films Luke kind of sucks with the lightsaber, because he never got practice, He's not Anakin Skywalker, and he's not Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he's definitely not, Mace Windu or Kit Fisto or Ki-Adi-Mundi or anyone like that. So Luke is, like I said, if you ignore the nostalgia for 5 seconds, he's a very flawed character, and he is a human. He's not a god. He does make mistakes, and that's why we love Luke. We don't love Luke, or at least I don't love Luke, because he's perfect and he always does everything correctly. He fucks up a lot, and I'm sorry, but that someone told me that. Does he F up? And I'm using his words. Yes, he does F up. He messes up a lot, and he always manages to still save the day. And that's the best part about Luke, is that he's a human. He's not some kind of drone. He's not Han Solo where he's perfect. He's not Poe Dameron in The Force Awakens where he's perfect. He's a very flawed character, and he's very flawed in The Last Jedi. But because of that, everyone seemed to have this misfire about whose character is, and it's true. Luke is a flawed character. And I'm done talking about this now. I just had to talk about it because this is the first film with Luke Skywalker actually in it. But it is, it's a very interesting character. And I do think in a lot of ways Luke is a more, diverse and different hero than Anakin is. They're both different and they're both flawed and they're both perfect in many ways. But Luke just has this more human feel to him. Probably because he's not flipping around and slicing the heck out of battle droids and stuff. But still, I do think they're both great characters. But Luke in this movie, he's not perfect, and he never was. Let's see here. We got the chemistry, like I already touched upon. The chemistry between every character is perfect, even more so than the prequels. You instantly, when you see Chewie and R2-D2 and C-3PO, Luke, Leia, Han in the Falcon, you love these characters. Not just because they're nostalgic and you grew up with it and it's an icon. When you just watch this movie to watch this movie, you instantly like all the characters. I mean, at least for me, I love the characters of the prequels, but this one just has something human and more realistic to it than just, the prequels did. And I love the prequels so much. Like I said, I love every Star Wars movie the exact same. But when you reveal them as films and not Star Wars films, as real movies, they do have flaws. And this one I do think has better chemistry than the prequels did. Let's see here. Better lore. Let's see, it's with the prequels. Yeah, so with the Clone Wars stuff, as I said, we already touched upon that. The CGI and the effects. Now, the CGI was pioneered in 77. This was amazing. Everyone freaking loved A New Hope for the effects. Oh, it looks so realistic. The X-Wings are flying. The Death Star is huge. The planets are huge. Now, I will say, George Lucas, this is the tampered version. This is the one that he went in and changed some digital effects. I have Empire on Blu-ray and Return of the Jedi on DVD like this, and I'm not sure if those were the tampered ones. I actually have A New Hope, Empire, and Return of the Jedi on the original. I'm not going to tell you how I got it. A family member got it for me, so thank you if you're watching. But I actually never watched them yet. I'm going to have to watch them. I just, for these reviews, I wanted to watch the better looking versions. But it is true that he tampered. Greedo shoots first in this one. I think Han always shot first. But again, it is what it is, and you know, it is. It does. Okay, look, it doesn't hold up perfectly. I do think the prequels, of course, look better, and the sequels, of course, they effing look better. But this one, it still holds up without being corny. You know, some of it looks a little weird. You know, especially when the lightsabers light up, it skips a frame, and some of the editing's a bit off. But I mean, realistically, the CGI and the puppetry and the stop motion effects, it all looks really good, and it still holds up today, while not being perfect. Let's see, George Lucas messed with the visuals, we already talked about that. References, now I was looking forward to this, because as I'm watching them all in the correct order, after seeing 1, 2, Clone Wars 3, Solo, Rogue One, now this one, A New Hope, Episode 4, I was really looking forward to, okay, they can reference things and all that, and they do. They reference the Clone Wars, and they reference Kessel, and it's really cool to see that this is the first one made, and they're already referencing things that we have in the future, you know? And I always wondered, why does Obi-Wan Kenobi not want to be called Obi-Wan? Why does he go by Ben and all that, you know? And why does he not say, oh, I don't remember owning a droid, you know? And it's like, of course you frickin' do, you moron. He was with him in the prequels, you know? R2-D2 and Obi-Wan are best buddies. And I now realize, when I was a kid watching this, or, you know, not really a kid, but, you know, like a 12, 13 teenager, I never got it, but now I do. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ben Kenobi, was lying to Luke, because his whole mission at the end of Episode 3 and Rebels is to protect Luke. And what does Obi-Wan Kenobi do right before this movie? He kills Darth Maul on Tatooine. So that's that. But it's really cool to know that, you know, he does lie to Luke because he wants to protect him, but eventually he knows, I can't freaking protect you forever, you know, we gotta do this. And that's why he's like, alright, come on this adventure, you know, become a Jedi, I'll train you, all that stuff. And it really is cool to know that, you know, all these movies, the prequels, when you watch them with 1 through 8, with all this stuff in my correct order, it really helps, you know, when he references things, like, oh, that was in that movie, and before the Dark Times, and then he does lie to Luke, and that's why everyone's like, well, how come he doesn't remember owning a droid? And it's not just, oh, well, obviously it's because it's the first one made, they didn't have a plan back then, but it works because he's lying to Luke, it's that simple. It's not, you know, directly told, but if you have a brain, you'll know that his mission is to protect Luke, so that's why he's lying, he wants to protect him, but then he's like, oh, I can't freaking do it forever. It is really cool. Funny. A lot of people with the Disney sequels, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Solo, Rogue One, and then Rise of Skywalker eventually, a lot of people have issues with the comedy. I have no issues with the comedy, and honestly, this is another thing like Luke. If you honestly, like, look me in the eye and tell me you think that the Disney movies, the Disney Star Wars movies, are too funny, then you have an issue with Star Wars. Because after watching A New Hope, the 4th film, but the first released, it's very funny. There are a lot of jokes. There's a lot of slapstick. People hit their heads on things. The stormtroopers are dip slizzles. They're freaking falling and slipping on crap. I mean, it's a funny movie. It's not a comedy by any means. It's not meant to be a comedy, but it does have some interesting, funny moments. Now, I will say the prequels are pretty much dry humor. There's really no humor in the prequels, except for maybe Jar Jar and the Phantom Menace. And I think the Disney sequels wanted to really, you know, capitalize on that humor. Because, yeah, Star Wars is very serious, and it's not for kids, and it's mature and all that, but it really does have some humorous moments in there, especially with the animals and all that, and this movie is funny. So if you think the Disney sequels are too funny, I don't think you ever knew what Star Wars was in the first place. It is funny. It's not a comedy, but it does have some really funny moments in there, and like Return of the Jedi with the Ewoks, you know, I mean, it's just, I don't know, there's just a funny element about it. You know, every movie has some funny moments, and I do think the Disney movies are the funniest, but, I mean, for people to say, oh, they're just copying the Marvel comedy, I don't think you ever understood what Star Wars comedy was, and it's apparent in every movie. The action, okay, so this is the big one. The action can be dumb, cringy, and corny, but it fits the story. So, that almost rhymed. So, essentially, you know, you have the X-Wings battles, dogfights, looks great. You have the, you know, shooting, whatever the hell you call it, you know, like Rogue One, any Star Wars movie, you know, ground combat with the blasters, looks great. However, sometimes the stormtroopers, like I said, they hit their heads on things. They're slipping around a lot. They're just kind of flopping around for no reason. And that's an editing error, of course, because, it's meant to look very action-packed, and when you have people rolling around for no reason, they're dead, but you don't see them get shot, so it looks weird. But still, the worst action scene in all of Star Wars, in all of it, takes place in this movie, and that is, of course, Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Darth Vader in the Death Star. Of course, this is when Obi-Wan Kenobi dies, and now that I've seen the prequels and all that, and I watched it, in the correct order, I felt something, If you just watch 4 first, if you watch A New Hope first, you don't really feel anything when Obi-Wan dies. You're like, too bad, old man. But this one, you're like, wow, he went through so much crap, and all this stuff he's been through, and now he's one with the Force, It really is something to behold. It does look a little weird. But, he just disappears, like, where the hell did he go? But it is funny. He's, of course, one with the Force. But, NetherRhyme too. But, going forward with the action, that scene is horribly made. And I get it. Darth Vader is up there in years a little bit. Yeah, you're right, because it takes place in Rogue One. We saw him with his helmet off, and he's not, like, old, but, he's not like Anakin Skywalker was in the end of Episode 3. And of course we have Obi-Wan Kenobi, who's also old, so I get it. They're not going to be flipping around and flopping like morons like the prequels, But, and there are different fighting styles, There's one like this, there's kicking, there's punching, there's robe flipping, there's many different fighting styles within the Star Wars universe, and one of them is more fencing, more calm, But it just looks ridiculous. It really does. I mean, Darth Vader went... It's like, what the hell are you doing? It looks so bad. Oh my gosh, it just looks retarded. And, then you have Obi-Wan Kenobi doing a flip, but it's like the slowest flip known to man. It's such a boring fight scene, but again, it fits the story because they are both older and they are using different stances to fit their age. Fighting styles to fit their age. So, it makes sense within the story for sure, and that's not the negative. The negative is just how dumb it looks. And I bet when this came out in '77, that was like the most badass thing ever, Oh my god, it's cool! Lightsaber fight! But now that we have the prequels, which, yeah, the prequels can be too overly choreographed, like this, and, rope swinging and all that. And then you have the sequels, Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, have very realistic and grounded lightsaber fights, especially the throne room scene in The Last Jedi. And of course the end fight on Starkiller Base Ulam in Force Awakens. But just to... now that I've seen 1, 2, 3 Clone Wars and all that, it doesn't look right at all. It looks really dumb, and it is a negative, even though it fits the story. And that's it. So that is my Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope review. Again, it really does hold up. It's a great film. It's timeless. It does have some issues with the editing, a little bit of the writing, a little bit of the dialogue. Giving the dialogue, how they say things. Of course, the lightsaber fight is really poor and very cringy to watch. But again, it does fit the story, so it's not all bad. I'm going to give Star Wars Episode 4 a B+. That's probably really low for all you original trilogy lovers, but again, I have to avoid the nostalgia. As a Star Wars film, it's freaking awesome, and it's amazing just like the other ones. But as a film, I'm not being too harsh, because again, I have to look at it through '77, but, it is what it is. Some of the things are kind of bad. But again, it's not a bad film. I love A New Hope, but when you're looking at it as a movie, there are some glaring issues. Not just because it's old, just because either George Lucas didn't care, or there wasn't enough time, or whatever. But as a movie, it's damn good, and I really love it. And this is what really made Star Wars what Star Wars is. Even though it's the 4th one, it's the first one released, and this is the one that created the whole Star Wars titan. So thank you guys. Please tell me what you thought about Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope in the comments. And later today, on the 15th, I will also have Episode 5 The Empire Strikes Back. Thank you guys. May the Force be with you, and we'll see you guys in the next video.